My name is John Davitt. I am 28 years old. I have always felt somewhat out of place within my family, not quite embodying the role of a son or a brother as one might wish. Do not misunderstand me. In theory, everything appears to be in order. I hold a respectable position in the realm of information technology. I possess a condominium that I genuinely inhabit. I embody politeness, presentability, and dependability in the most significant aspects. Yet within the confines of my family, dependable simply referred to someone we could offload our burdens onto without the need for gratitude. It has consumed a significant portion of my adult existence to come to the understanding that none among my family truly perceives my essence. I find myself in the role of the unseen resolver, the source of humor, or the option of last resort. Always the child they speak of in hushed tones, always the brother they cannot look up to. Particularly not to my sister, Sunita. Sunita is 28, and I truly believe she entered this world with an innate ability to command the attention of any room she graces. She possesses a unique ability to laugh in such a manner that it compels those around her to join in, regardless of whether anything amusing is happening. She possesses intelligence, beauty, and confidence, all while being just cunning enough to remain 3 steps ahead of those around her, all the while maintaining the guise of a victim. In her formative years, she possessed a remarkable talent for theatrics, wielding it as a formidable tool. I have perpetually found myself in the role of the scapegoat. If an item disappeared, I was the one who claimed it. When she stumbled on a test, I provided a diversion. Her feelings of insecurity stemmed from my tendency to boast about landing a part-time job while still navigating high school. I refrained from boasting. I merely brought it up. At one point, during the evening meal, she wept. I find myself in the unfortunate position of being grounded. As we transitioned into adulthood, I held on to the hope that perhaps equilibrium would finally be achieved. I endeavored to remain supportive, despite the lingering years of resentment. After she decided to leave college following 2 semesters, I assisted her in crafting her resume. When she decided to upgrade to a better apartment with her boyfriend, now fiancé, who do you think co-signed the lease? When she shared the news of her engagement last year and expressed her desire for a family-centered wedding, I eagerly offered my assistance in any way possible. It is simply my calling. I provide assistance. Even if I receive no expression of gratitude. Even if I am ridiculed in whispers for continuing to drive a decade-old vehicle. Even if my presence is not truly desired at the table, I find myself merely anticipated to prepare it. Her engagement dinner took place at a trendy restaurant, where dim lighting and faux exposed brick created an ambience that straddled the line between rustic charm and modern sophistication. I had assisted her in securing the venue for the wedding, a ludicrous lakefront property that demanded a non-refundable deposit of $10,000. She implored me to place it in my name, as her credit was lacking, assuring me that she would reimburse me within a month. It has been 6 weeks since that moment. Not a single dime had appeared. I continually reassured myself that she would eventually address it. Perhaps, just perhaps, this dinner could mark a new beginning for us. Perhaps she would express her gratitude publicly, in front of all. Instead, I was caught off guard. As we reached the midpoint of our dinner, the servers had just presented the main course, an extravagant chicken dish with a name that eluded my tongue. As Sunita rose to her feet, a glass of champagne elegantly cradled in her hand. She cast a smile towards her fiancé, then directed her gaze to our parents, and finally swept her eyes around the room. All ears were attuned, as if a moment of profound emotion was about to unfold. I leaned in as well, filled with hope. To my fiancé, she said, her voice shimmering with a playful lilt. You were the finest choice I ever embraced. Yet this evening, I feel compelled to express my gratitude to an individual who illuminated for me precisely what paths to avoid. A person who, day after day, illustrated the essence of settling. She faced me, her gaze empty, yet a smile crept across her lips. Let us all lift our glasses in honor of my dear brother, John Davitt. Thank you for serving as the perfect example of what to avoid becoming. In that fleeting moment, a part of me wondered if she was merely jesting, a peculiar, awkwardly entangled inside joke. Yet, in that moment, the room burst forth with laughter. Our uncle applauded. Our mother let out a soft laugh, her wine glass cradled delicately in her hand. Even our father managed to smile and murmured something along the lines of, "Well, she has a point." In that moment, I found myself utterly immobilized. Not a single word escaped my lips. I remained utterly still, without a single blink. My hands rested on my lap, while others raised their glasses in celebration, as if I were invisible in that moment. I locked eyes with my cousin Hamtani, one of the rare family members who had consistently shown me a modicum of kindness. She offered me a smile, tight-lipped yet filled with sympathy. Yet, she remained silent as well. I drained the last of my water, slid my chair away, and murmured that I wasn't feeling quite right. No one intervened. No one bothered to inquire about my well-being. I departed prior to the arrival of dessert. The journey back was enveloped in silence, not subdued in emotion. No, my mind was a tempest of recollections, barbs, and reverberating mirth. Yet, in that moment, it was merely the soft hum of the tires and the sporadic flicker of the blinker as I navigated, maneuvered once more, and finally glided into my parking garage. The ceiling held my gaze that night. I reflected on the countless occasions I had extended my forgiveness to her. How many times I had convinced myself that this time would be unlike the others. Perhaps if I continued to be present, continued to offer my support, continued to endure the disrespect, she would finally notice me. She would hold me in high regard. Yet, at this moment, clarity dawned upon me. Her voice didn't need to rise. The lack of respect was evident. With a smirk and a toast, she could accomplish it effortlessly. In that moment, the thought of the deposit resurfaced in my mind. The deposit for the venue amounts to $10,000. It remains under my name. It remains lodged in the limbo of my bank's pending transaction history. I lifted the lid of my laptop. Access granted. Peruse the cancellation policy thoroughly, ensuring you grasp its nuances fully. With a decisive motion, I clicked cancel, without a hint of caution. There will be no refund issued to her card. Due to the absence of a card, it was entirely my doing. I reclined in my chair. My heart remained calm. It had ceased to be angry altogether. It simply exuded tranquility. The initial message arrived at approximately 7:30 the following morning. Then yet another. Then came a call. Subsequently, 3 that were overlooked. A voicemail from Sunita erupted with frantic cries about a mix-up, questioning how such a thing could occur and whether you truly grasp the magnitude of your actions. I was acutely aware of my actions. I had barely scratched the surface of what needed to be done. I allowed the phone to hum softly until it faded into quietude. I chose not to respond. Not at this moment. With a steaming cup of coffee in hand, I tended to the plants on my balcony, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself the pleasure of sitting down to savor breakfast. The realization of no longer being anyone's doormat brought an unexpected richness to the flavors of food. Yet, my tranquility was fleeting. At the stroke of 10 a.m., my mother's voice rang through the phone. When I failed to respond, she sent a text. "Mother, John Davitt, kindly respond. Your sister weeps silently. Your actions were undeniably harsh, utterly superfluous. Why did you choose to do that? No, are you all right?" Merely the presumption that I had erred in some way. The message has been deleted. Moments later, a new message arrived, this time from Sunita herself. A series of messages, indeed, all lined up in succession, reminiscent of a tantrum unfolding in real time, as if being broadcasted live. "Sunita, what troubles you? Sunita, you have brought chaos to it all. Sunita, you were aware that we required that venue. I shared the news with everyone. Sunita, it is imperative that you rectify this situation today. Sunita, it's hard to fathom that you would undermine your own sister. Is it simply because my happiness is unbearable for you?" There it stood, the change in perspective. I did not find myself on the receiving end of a public affront. I had become the envious disruptor now, timeless Sunita. On that particular afternoon, my cousin Hamtani reached out with a call. I truly took the initiative. Her voice trembled with uncertainty. "Greetings, I wanted to touch base." The toast from last night. Indeed, it lacked any semblance of coolness. I had something to express. I said you didn't. Neither cruel nor cutting. Only the truth. I am aware. I apologize. I sensed that if I proceeded, it would have spiraled into an entire ordeal, and it ought to have evolved into something significant, I responded. If only someone had dared to confront her at least once in her life, Perhaps we wouldn't find ourselves in this predicament. She fell silent for a brief moment. So, is it accurate that you have canceled the venue? Indeed. Wow, she remarked, her tone elusive and difficult to decipher, part admiration, part concern. She is on the brink of losing her sanity at this moment, yelling at your parents, pointing fingers at others. Her fiancé departed from their home this morning and has yet to return. I chose not to reply to that. It's important to note that they were relying on that venue for the engagement photos, isn't it? She remarked. This weekend, they organized an entire photo shoot centered around it. Then I trust they remembered to bring a tripod, I remarked, taking a sip of my coffee. A lengthy silence ensued. Then Humtani lowered her voice and said, I know I didn't say anything last night, but I see you, John Davitt. I truly do. For a brief moment, I remained silent. Thank you. As I ended the call, the ensuing silence was anything but void. The space was brimming with everything I had kept inside for so long. I recalled the moment when Sunita was caught sneaking out during our high school days, casting the blame upon me for planting the idea in her mind. I recalled the family vacation when she misplaced her phone in the ocean, and my parents insisted that I cover the cost of its replacement. I recalled the moment I moved into my first apartment, when she remarked that it reeked of failure, only to invite her friends over uninvited and leave the place in disarray. Yet, I continued to offer. However, that is no longer the case. That evening, the next escalation unfolded. This time, it was father. He seldom engaged unless there were financial stakes at play. Even before I answered, I had a sense of what his call would entail. John Davitt, he remarked, his tone already on the defensive. What's the situation with the venue? Can you shed some light on it? Inquire with Sunita. She claims you merely did it out of spite. Did she share her thoughts about me with you? During her toast. He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Naturally, she was jesting. You seem to be quite sensitive. It stood before me. The refrain of the family, the gospel of gaslight. Do you truly believe it's amusing to declare to an audience that your brother serves as a cautionary tale? I inquired, my tone as serene as a still lake awaiting the tempest. Her intentions were not as they seemed. However, she intended for me to stake $10,000 without any formal agreement. Indeed, she intended to employ me as the butt of her joke. Therefore, no, Dad, I believe I won't be making any repairs to it. She's your sister, he said, as if the significance of that word carried weight beyond its mere definition. She is an adult, I responded, and I no longer serve as her safety net. He let out a deep sigh, as if I were the source of his fatigue. This decision will haunt you, John Davitt. Families unite in solidarity. Amusing, I remarked. Mine certainly did not. I ended the call. That evening, an email arrived from the venue, affirming the cancellation and the initiation of the refund process. The funds were being returned to my account, as they were indeed my deposit. The sight of that confirmation did not fill me with excitement. It did not fill me with smugness. It simply brought me a sense of clarity. After years of uncertainty, a flicker of hope began to emerge within me, suggesting that perhaps, just perhaps, this could finally be the conclusion I had long awaited. Perhaps they would grant me solitude and come to their own conclusions. As the knock echoed through my door, the clock struck 9:43 in the evening. As I turned the handle, the door creaked open before me. And there she stood, Sunita, without makeup, hair swept back, eyes swollen and tinged with red. Yet, despite everything, that little smirk remained on her lips, as if she had already convinced herself of her victory. May I enter? She inquired. I chose not to respond. She advanced nonetheless. What she uttered next sent a wave of unease through me. John Davitt, I kindly request that you return the money to me. I have already informed everyone that the wedding will proceed as planned at the lakefront venue. We have the option to rebook it. There's no need for pettiness. I blinked. Trivial. Trivial. In that moment, the realization dawned upon me. She had not arrived to offer her apologies. She had yet to grasp the meaning. She arrived to gather what was due, and I was no longer hers to gather from. Yet, just as I was about to utter a single word, before I could even draw a breath to reply, she committed yet another blunder. She surveyed my apartment, crinkled her nose, and remarked, "So, you really haven't updated the decor since college, have you?" A smile graced my lips. With measured intent, I extended my hand toward the door handle. John Davitt, she exclaimed, her eyes widening in surprise. Please refrain from this action. The door creaked open beneath my touch. Yet, just as I was about to seal it, I uttered 6 words I had longed to express my entire existence. You showed me precisely who I was meant to become. With that, I closed the door firmly, leaving her on the other side. I lingered for a moment, my hand poised on the doorknob, gazing at the wood grain as if it concealed secrets waiting to be uncovered. I anticipated her to strike the door once more, shout, weep, deal, yet she chose not to. Instead, I caught the crisp sound of her heels striking the hallway tile, soon accompanied by the diminishing resonance of her footsteps as she departed. At least, that was my assumption. Approximately 10 minutes later, my phone illuminated once more. Initially, I received a message from my mother, then from my father, then a third call came from a number that was unfamiliar to me. Unidentified caller. This is Bale, the fiancé of Sunita. It is imperative that we have a conversation. The message held my gaze for an extended moment. Bale and I had exchanged words perhaps on 2 occasions since the engagement, each interaction remaining rather shallow. He always appeared, shall we say, not exactly a villain, yet not quite an individual who truly engaged in independent thought. Sunita had him completely under her spell. Once upon a time, that was my belief. Driven by a sense of curiosity, I responded, about what exactly? He responded almost at once, revealing the truth about the venue and what she had remarked about you the previous night. I found no amusement. I simply wished to convey this to you. The final line resonated in a profound way. I replied, you are betrothed to her. What prompts you to reach out to me? He replied, for I believe I am on the verge of committing the gravest error of my existence. I chose not to respond. It wasn't that I lacked words to express. Rather, I found myself adrift, uncertain of the destination of this unfolding narrative. I had no intention of stepping into the role of a therapist for someone else, especially when my sister's ego seemed to be the root of the turmoil. By the following morning, it was evident that Sunita had intensified the situation. She shared an extensively edited photo of herself and Bale on Instagram, accompanied by a caption so saccharine it could easily be mistaken for syrup. We must not allow jealousy to rob us of our happiness. There are those who seek to undermine others, driven by their own discontent. Yet, what a true love. True love transcends all. The remarks were entirely expected. Her friends chimed in, expressing their disdain with a collective, ugh, haters gonna hate. Your radiance is undeniable. Dismiss the negativity, darling. You are truly remarkable. I refrained from commenting. I didn't even access the post directly. I recently caught a glimpse of the preview that was shared with me by someone else. Humtani, naturally, her message conveyed that she is weaving an intricate tale. This is becoming rather unpleasant. Indeed, it was, for in that moment, the story was being reshaped before our very eyes. I was more than merely the brother who called off a deposit. I found myself cast as the bitter antagonist, intent on undermining the joy of my baby sister. She was fully aware that I wouldn't stand up for myself in the digital realm. She understood that I wasn't the kind of person to broadcast the truth across social media platforms. That did not align with my aesthetic. Perhaps that was the very reason she believed she could escape unscathed. And that is precisely where she went awry. For what she remained unaware of, as did everyone else, was that I possessed something she had yet to discover. It was an object I clung to purely out of routine, never truly considering that it might one day prove useful. As I assisted her in securing the venue, she seemed disinclined to complete the vendor paperwork, so I took it upon myself to handle it. When they inquired about the primary contact for the event, I volunteered myself, as I was the one who settled the bill. The individual tasked with managing communication. The individual who ensured that every email, every document, and every signed agreement found its way directly to my inbox. Enclosed is the PDF of the contract. Furthermore, the signed acknowledgement from Sunita. It lacked legal binding authority. It was neither a loan nor anything of the sort. However, it was a document in which she consented to take on the responsibility for reimbursing all fees associated with the booking. And the twist? A clause within the contract clearly articulated that any intentional misrepresentation of the event by the client, which could lead to public disparagement or reputational damage to the venue or its representatives, might not only result in cancellation, but also in a blacklist from all event spaces associated with that management company. Interpretation? She was prepared to bid farewell to her entire list of backups. Thus, I had no intention of making it public. Yet, I was not compelled to remain silent, either. I promptly forwarded the original signed agreement to Bale. I refrained from including any commentary, only the document. Several hours passed before he responded. He claimed that she deceived me. You claimed that payment was never made. You claimed it was all fabricated to humiliate her. I'm beginning to understand that I may not truly know the person I'm about to marry. I have just provided my response. Now is the moment for you to determine your identity apart from her. The next action I took was of a more nuanced nature. I placed a discreet phone call to the venue coordinator, a woman named Deso, who exhibited a remarkable level of politeness throughout our brief exchange. I conveyed that I had indeed canceled the booking. However, I expressed my concern regarding the possibility of my sister trying to rebook under an alias, perhaps utilizing the name of a friend or relative as the applicant. Deso let out a sigh and remarked that it certainly wouldn't be the first instance of someone attempting that. I appreciate the heads up. We shall highlight the name along with the type of event. We possess the gift of sight. And at last, the third thing, I lingered in anticipation. The forthcoming explosion was not one I initiated. I was aware it was on the horizon. As fate would have it, 3 days later, it arrived. A voicemail from my mother, filled with urgency and bewilderment. John David, what actions have you taken? Sunita is unraveling. She claims that the venue has placed her on their blacklist. She finds herself unable to secure any bookings at this moment. What transpired? Please give me a call. This has escalated beyond acceptable limits. I refrained from making the call, for no one had reached out when I was the one subjected to humiliation. No one rose to my defense when I became the target of their laughter. No one seemed to notice me as I sat at the table, observing everyone laugh at my expense, as if I were merely a prop in my sister's comedic performance. Thus, I had no inclination towards managing the fallout. I was far from done, for there remained one final card to be played. The singular event that took Sunita completely by surprise. The element that would compel all to perceive me in a new light, not solely her. And it had already begun its journey. Unbeknownst to them, the truth lingered just out of reach. I lingered in anticipation, not from malice, but from careful planning. Observe, there exists a distinction between vengeance and triviality. Pettiness arises from a moment's whim. It responds. Yet vengeance, true vengeance, is subtle, enduring. It bides its time, poised for the ideal instant to descend, not at the moment they anticipate, but rather when they require your presence the most. That is when it strikes with the greatest intensity. And what of Sunita? She was on the brink of discovering that lesson in vivid clarity. I chose not to answer any of their calls. Neither mother nor father, and certainly not Sunita, who at this juncture was leaving voice messages that oscillated between a tone of despair and one of sharp malice, dictated by the depths of her desperation. In that fleeting moment, it was, Callan, I apologize, all right? I didn't intend for it to come across that way. Let us proceed onward. Then the next moment, it became clear that you had always harbored disdain for me. Confess it, you were merely biding your time for a reason to unravel my existence. They were all beneath my notice. I found myself in a state of anticipation, for there was a singular call I awaited. It arrived precisely 1 week later. Bale. There was an unmistakable change in his voice this time, more rooted, less regretful. He omitted any form of greeting. Callan, I have just concluded a conversation with the venue manager. Sunita attempted to make a reservation in my name without my knowledge. It was flagged without delay. I remained quiet. She explained that it was merely a misunderstanding. You orchestrated every detail. My heart yearned to trust her words. I truly did. However, I began to delve into the financial aspects. What about the deposit? You have settled it. What about the dress? She informed me that it was marked down. It appears that a bespoke design was charged to my card during my absence from town. And let's not even delve into the expenses for flowers. I remained largely silent. Allow him to express himself freely. Then he unleashed the ultimate revelation. I have decided to end the engagement. A moment of silence lingered in the air. His breath reached me from the other end, a quiet reminder of his presence. You were right, he said. I found myself uncertain of the identity of my companion. I expressed my gratitude for his revelation. I expressed my hopes for his success. And then I ended the call. I chose not to celebrate. A sense of triumph did not wash over me. There will be no cinematic sequence of me swaying in my living room like a nefarious character. It simply felt warranted, as if the cosmos had at long last, set itself right. Yet, the true conclusion? It arrived 3 days later. My family made the spontaneous choice to organize a recovery brunch at my parents' home. It seems rather like a public relations strategy, if one can fathom it. The objective was to provide assistance to Sunita while prioritizing the healing of the family. The invitation was sent out in a group text to all the familiar faces, relatives, extended family, cherished companions, and myself. I had no intention of attending. However, Hamtani sent me a screenshot of the new flyer that was being distributed at church. Join us in honoring Sunita's resilience and elegance in the face of challenges as we gather for brunch, camaraderie, and the promise of a new beginning. The twist? It captured her smile, a poignant blend of joy and sorrow. The gaze of the victim. It was at that moment I made my decision. I arrived. I donned my crispest pressed shirt, shined shoes, and carried a composed demeanor with me, calm and composed. Not arrogant, merely incomprehensible. Upon my arrival, they had already made significant progress in their meal. A familiar assembly gathered around an expansive table, adorned with gilded napkin rings and artificial blooms sourced from the dollar store. As I entered, an immediate change enveloped the room. Sunita's smile wavered. Mom glanced up from her mimosa as if I had intruded upon a solemn eulogy. Father arched an eyebrow. I inclined my head in agreement. Please, continue without any hesitation on my behalf. Silence enveloped the room as no one uttered a word, not even Sunita. She simply gazed at me as if I had arrived brandishing a Molotov cocktail. I settled into my chair opposite her and bided my time. 5 minutes elapsed. Then 10. The chatter swirled around me, a constant hum reminiscent of buzzing insects, stretched thin, uncomfortable, excessively compensating. At last, Father cleared his throat. John David, it seems we can all concur that this situation has spiraled beyond control. Oh, I remarked, arching an eyebrow. Which section? The exposure to public scorn? Is it the art of manipulation? Is it a deception? Or perhaps the manipulation that ensued? He blinked, a fleeting moment of surprise crossing his features. I find myself pondering. Perhaps the moment has come to transcend it. It is time for you all to understand the true essence of moving forward, I declared, rising to my feet and retrieving a manila envelope from the depths of my coat pocket. Sunita's complexion drained of color in an instant. I had no intention of speaking up. I intended to simply carry on, as I often do. Yet, it was then that my gaze fell upon the flyer. Additionally, the link for the fundraiser. The donation box positioned near the entrance. I flung the envelope onto the table. It descended with a gratifying thud. Text that, I remarked, gesturing towards it, is a comprehensive record of every penny I've disbursed for Sunita over the past 6 years. Cosign leases, outstanding balances on credit cards, deposits for tuition. Indeed, the venue. I directed my gaze towards Sunita. Do you wish to portray yourself as the victim? Very well, however, not at my expense. If one seeks sympathy, one must bear the cost alone. The room lay in complete silence. I surveyed my surroundings. I have no intention of requesting a refund. Let us clarify. I have reached my limit. I no longer feel entitled to anything, because I shall no longer offer anything further. This serves to ensure that we are all transparent regarding the events that transpired. I turned my gaze squarely towards my mother in that moment. Should your notion of healing involve casting blame on the sole individual who has never sought anything, all while toasting with champagne to the one who perpetually ignites chaos, then savor your brunch. However, I shall not partake in it. With that, I pivoted and made my way to the door. As I was about to step outside, Sunita's voice reached me from behind, breaking apart, elevated in tone, in a state of utter despair. Your envy stems from the affection I received in abundance. I tilted my head ever so slightly. Adored. I reiterated. You have been empowered. A distinction exists. I departed, and this time, I stepped out alone, with no one trailing behind me. For months have passed. I have altered my contact number. I have removed the family group chat. I have severed all connections with Sunita across every platform. No announcement was made by me. I refrained from going nuclear. I simply disappeared from their existence, like wisps of smoke dissipating from a flame that has at last extinguished itself. I continued my conversations with Hamtani. A few weeks back, she stopped by and left a bottle of wine, accompanied by a sticky note that simply read, "Good for you." Sunita's wedding was meant to take place last weekend. It never came to pass. Bale has relocated to Chicago. A fresh opportunity awaits. A fresh beginning. He reached out to express his gratitude once again. I extended my wishes for his success. My parents have not made any effort to connect. Never. In all honesty, I find myself at peace with that. For the first time in my life, I sense a release from the relentless need to validate my place within a family that never sought to embrace me. I no longer perceive myself as a mere background character. I do not sense a lack of presence. There is a sense of liberation within me. In those quiet moments, as I cradle my morning coffee and gaze upon the sprawling city skyline from my modest balcony, my thoughts drift to the toast that ignited everything. Let us express our gratitude to the individual who illuminated the path of what I should avoid becoming. Do you realize something? She was indeed correct. For I imparted to her the lessons of what to avoid becoming. I instructed her to embrace kindness instead of cruelty, to avoid a sense of entitlement. Do not overlook the silent souls. And, above all, I imparted to her the lesson of what transpires when the one you have always relied upon finally utters the word no. Not through shouts, not through vengeance, only with clarity. At times, the sheer force of clarity stands as the most potent form of retribution one can wield.